Hey, do you realize just how easily we could have another Great Depression or food shortages in today's times? If you do know this, you will realize just how important today's video is going to be. So today we're going to learn about heirloom seeds and why every serious prepper should not only know about them, but also how to save them. So if you're new to emergency preparedness and new to gardening, then don't buy seeds until you watch this video. Now here is why having knowledge and experience with heirloom seeds for preppers is so important. Fruits and vegetables that are grown from heirloom seeds, you can save those free seeds when you harvest and eat the food and use those seeds to plant your garden the following year. And that is something that you just can't typically do with the normal hybrid garden seeds that you buy in your normal stores. And this just means that by using heirloom seeds that you only have to buy your seeds once, because when you plant those seeds and then you harvest those seeds when you harvest your food from the garden, then again you can use those seeds to plant your next year's garden. And you can do this again and again, time after time, season after season, which is very important should we ever suffer a natural disaster or a disaster bad enough that our factories and food houses and grocery stores were to ever shut down. Just think about it. What if this pandemic had actually got bad enough that food warehouses and grocery stores actually had to shut down because too many people were sick to actually go into work? This is where knowing about and having experience with heirloom seeds is a lifesaver. Now, with a little bit of practice, saving heirloom seeds is pretty simple, but this is still something that you want to have experience with should that time ever come that your life depends on it. For instance, with many herbs, you just simply let a few of the plants come to flower to save their heirloom seeds. And that is because many times those seeds are located inside of the flower. But what you do when you let a few of these plants go to flower is you let the flower naturally die off, turn brown and crumbly, and it's at that point, once they turn brown and crumbly, that many times the seeds are ready to be harvested. Now with heirloom oregano, like you see here, once they turn brown and dead and crumbly, to harvest these seeds is just as easy as turning them upside down, agitating them a little bit, and letting the little miniature seeds just fall onto the plate or whatever you're collecting them with. Now really quick, this video is part of a collaboration with some other really excellent YouTube channels, all part of this 30 days of emergency preparedness. And I didn't even know this until I was invited to do this, but September is National Emergency Preparedness Month. And I will be putting a link to a playlist that these other YouTube channels are doing as part of this collaboration down below. So please check these other channels and their videos out for this collaboration. And to the other YouTube channels that invited me and allowed me to be part of this collaboration, hey, I want to thank you very much for doing that, and I am very honored. So now let's get back to saving heirloom seeds. Now with cilantro, what you do is you again just let some of the plants come to flower, and what you're looking at here is cilantro that's actually dead and ready for me to harvest the seeds. But you just let the flowers naturally die off, and with this cilantro, the little seed bulbs will be left on top of the flowers, and you just simply pluck them off and throw them into your packet for next year's garden. Now the great thing about cilantro is you're actually getting two things in one. You're getting the little green leaves that you can use to flavor different foods with that really gives great flavoring. And these seeds, besides using these to grow your next year's crop of cilantro with, you can also use the seeds as the spice that's called coriander, which actually has a slight lemony flavor to it for me, which goes good on chicken and fish. So if it's after SHTF and you catch some bluegills or whatever out of a nearby pond, great flavoring to go on it. Now herbs, while they don't provide a lot of calories, what they do provide are a lot of nutrients and a lot of good flavoring. So if you ever worry about your food after a disaster, your prepper food being bland and not tasting very good, it's herbs and spices and stuff like this that will really pack the punch for you to give you the extra nutrients that you need to remain healthy, also make your food taste so much better. Now some heirloom vegetables like bell peppers are easier to save the seeds than others. You just simply pick the seeds from the inside of it when you cut it up for dinner. Then you just let them sit for a few days to dry out. And then you're just going to store them until you plant them the following year. Now with some heirloom vegetables, it can be a little different to save their seeds. Let's take the tomato for example. For me, I have found it's easiest to save their seeds by squeezing the pulp-filled seeds into a glass of water and then let those seeds with all the pulp around it to actually sit in that cup of water for several days. And then stirring that water once or twice a day over those couple of days. And then over the course of a few days, that pulp will actually separate from the seeds. And the pulp and the bad seeds will float to the top of the water, and the good viable seeds will actually float to the bottom of that cup. Then you simply dump the tomato seeds onto a plate, spread them out, and let them dry over several days. And then you just simply put them in your packet and store them over the wintertime for the next growing season. Okay, I've actually got these growing in a pretty tight spot, so please bear with me. So not every plant produces seeds every year. Carrots, like you're looking at here, and onions are good examples of this. What plants like carrots and onions actually do is they actually produce seeds the second year that they grow. So what you do is you actually, when it comes time to harvest, you just harvest the majority of your plants, but you leave a couple of the plants to actually continue growing next year. And then what they will do is when the wintertime hits, the stalks will actually die off and just kind of go into hibernation, but your carrot is still under the ground. Then when the next following spring comes along, it will grow a new stalk a lot larger than what you had the year before. And it's these stalks, these second year stalks, that will actually end up with the flowers. Now the flowers usually end up pretty large and light colored, but gets towards the end of the year, they will actually start to turn inwards and turn brown and crumbly, and that's when you are ready to harvest these. And what I want you to really notice here is how many hundreds or thousands of little tiny seeds are in each one of these flowers. That is hundreds or thousands of new carrots that you can have the following year. Now hopefully you've noticed something, and that is that usually when you go to harvest heirloom seeds from a plant, that many times that one plant will produce hundreds or thousands of free seeds that you can plant the following year. That means that you are able to turn just a couple of tomatoes off of one tomato plant into hundreds of new tomato plants for your garden the following year, or also one carrot plant into thousands of new carrots for your garden the following year also. Now, not everything will produce seeds for you to save for the following year. Root vegetables is a good example of that. And what you're looking at here is my Kennebec white potato bed, where I have cut all the plants down for a couple of weeks before I harvest the potatoes to allow their skins to thicken to store over winter. Now what works best for me, instead of cutting potatoes down into pieces with the eyes, is I actually like to save smaller potatoes like this, or maybe even a little bit larger to egg-sized potatoes, and store those over the winter. And actually storing potatoes over the winter to plant the next year is actually a whole different video in itself. Now sweet potatoes are another example of where you don't get seeds, but you actually save some of the tubers from your harvest to plant the following year, much like white potatoes. Now, while a lot of people like to grow slips from their sweet potatoes and transplant those slips into their garden the following spring, I've just not had much luck with that. What I have found is easiest for me is just to save 3 or 4 sweet potatoes from my harvest and then plant them, the whole sweet potato, into my garden the next spring. And then it's not unusual for me to turn those 3 or 4 sweet potatoes into about 30 pounds of new sweet potatoes the following year in a little 3x5 garden bed like this. So now let's make this video a wealth of information for everybody by you commenting down below with your favorite tips and tricks for saving heirloom seed. To keep this video at a reasonable time limit, I had to leave a lot of stuff out. So please help others by leaving even more powerful information down in the comment section. And to see more excellent information done by the other YouTube channels underneath this collaboration, then click on the playlist video that should be appearing on the screen just about now to see that. Anyways, folks, that's enough internet for today. It's time to go train. And folks, if you made it this far, hey, thank you very much for watching. And I pray that you have a good night.